My father thought suspending me would teach me a lesson. Instead, it taught everyone else who was really running the company. My name is Ethan Caldwell, 31, and for 6 years I ran the only department that kept Caldwell Systems alive, product and engineering. My dad founded the company. Built it from a garage operation into a mid-size enterprise software firm with 280 employees. And my older brother, Gavin, had a talent for two things: 1, looking confident in meetings; 2, letting other people clean up his messes. Gavin was the Chief Growth Officer, a fancy title that mostly meant he shook hands, promised miracles, and took credit when the miracles happened. I was the one who had to make those miracles real. You know the worst part? My father didn't just favor Gavin. He protected him. Like Gavin was the company's future and I was just the help. And I told myself I could handle it. Because I wasn't working for praise. I was working for the company. For the people under me who trusted me. For the engineers pulling late nights. For the clients who didn't deserve to be lied to. I told myself, this isn't about family. This is business. But business doesn't work when your CEO treats the truth like betrayal. The blow-up happened in the quarterly board meeting, the kind with catered food, forced smiles, and expensive pens nobody used. I had just finished presenting our roadmap, timelines, risks, staffing. Everything was steady. We had a major client launch in 10 weeks. Tight but doable. Then Gavin stood up like he was about to accept an Oscar. He clicked to his slide, one he hadn't shared with anyone. And he told the board, we can deliver the Horizon upgrade in 4 weeks. We'll impress the client and lock a 5-year renewal. I didn't even blink at first. Because my brain was trying to be polite. Trying to find a version of reality where that sentence made sense. 4 weeks? That upgrade required a complete back-end refactor. Minimum 8 weeks, if everything went perfect. Realistically? 12. Gavin didn't know that because Gavin didn't ask. He never asked. He just promised, and then he'd look at me like, make it happen. Everyone at the table looked at me. My father didn't. He looked at Gavin like Gavin had just invented oxygen. My father nodded. That's the kind of ambition I like. I cleared my throat. Sir, that timeline isn't feasible. The room went still. Gavin's smile didn't move, but his eyes sharpened. I kept my tone calm. Professional. 4 weeks means cutting scope or risking defects. If we push that into production, we'll be dealing with outages and penalties. My father finally looked at me, and it wasn't the look of a CEO evaluating risk. It was the look of a dad hearing a kid talk back. Ethan, he said slowly, don't undermine your brother in front of the board. Undermine. That's what he called facts. Gavin leaned back like he was watching a show. Maybe Ethan's feeling a little resistant to change, Gavin said. He's always been conservative. Conservative. Right. Because wanting to deliver what we promised without destroying the product was conservative. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I did what I always did. I handled it. After the meeting, I walked straight to my office and wrote a calm email to the client. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Just honest, we're excited about the Horizon upgrade. After reviewing technical scope, the realistic delivery window is 10 to 12 weeks. We can deliver a smaller version in 4 weeks if you prefer. I copied Gavin. I copied my father. Because I was tired of playing pretend. 3 minutes later, Gavin stormed into my office like he owned oxygen. What the hell is wrong with you? He snapped. I saved us from a lawsuit, I said. You embarrassed me, he said. I stood up. You embarrassed yourself when you promised something you didn't understand. He leaned in close, smiling. You think Dad's going to choose you? And that's when I realized. He wasn't mad about the timeline. He was mad because I didn't let him pretend. The next morning, I got summoned to the conference room again. Same table. Same board members. Different energy. My father stood at the head like a judge. Gavin sat to his right, acting injured, like a victim. My father didn't even let me sit. Ethan, he said, you undermined your brother's authority with a client. That's insubordination. I stared at him. By telling the truth? My father's jaw tightened. You will be suspended for 2 weeks without pay. You'll return when you're ready to apologize to Gavin and support leadership decisions. Gavin didn't smirk. Not openly. He did something worse. He looked at me with pity. Fake pity. Like I was a disappointment. I took a slow breath. And I said the simplest thing I've ever said in my life. All right. The room blinked. My father looked confused. Like I robbed him of the argument he was ready to win. Gavin's eyebrows lifted. That's it? Gavin asked. That's it, I said. I grabbed my laptop and walked out. Back in my office, I stared at the walls. My awards. My team's photos. The roadmap boards filled with plans I'd built. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I felt clear. Because when someone suspends you for doing your job, they're telling you something. They don't want value. They want obedience. So I started packing. One box. Then another. Then a third. My assistant, Laura, poked her head in like she was afraid of what she'd see. "Ethan, are you leaving?" I smiled at her gently. "I think I already did," I said. My phone buzzed nonstop. Texts from engineers. A DM from one of the board members. And a message from my mentor, an older executive who'd recruited me years ago. "Call me. Now." I answered. He didn't waste time. "You're the reason that company isn't a dumpster fire," he said. "If you walk out, they're exposed." "I got suspended," I said. A pause. Then he exhaled. "So he chose Gavin." "Like always," I said. He lowered his voice. "If you leave, don't leave quiet. Leave clean." That sentence hit like a match. Because I had spent years being the quiet fixer. The invisible stabilizer. The person who made other people look competent. And I realized something terrifying. If I left quietly, Gavin would tell everyone I was the problem. He would rewrite the story. And my father would let him. So I opened my laptop. And I pulled up a folder I kept for risk management. Not revenge. Risk. Documentation of impossible promises Gavin made. Emails where I warned about timelines. Slack messages about budget cuts. Meeting notes. Client scope changes. All of it. I didn't create it to destroy anyone. I created it because when you run engineering, you learn a rule: if it's not documented, it didn't happen. And my brother's entire career was built on things not happening. By 6 p.m., my office looked bare. I printed one page. Just one. It was my resignation letter. Short. Professional. Effective immediately. And then I wrote one more message. A single email. Subject line: project timelines and delivery risk, board visibility, and I addressed it to every board member, the CFO, HR director, the company attorney, and yes, my father. I attached the timeline comparison, what Gavin promised versus what engineering estimated, the financial impact, overtime costs and lost margin from rushing, and the client risk, penalties for failure to deliver. No insults. No emotions. Just facts. And right before I hit send, I whispered, "You wanted me to apologize?" Then I clicked send. I slept like a man who finally stopped holding up a collapsing building with his bare hands. The next morning, I drove to the office early. Not to beg. Not to fight. To finish it. When I arrived, Gavin was already there. He walked past the hallway, coffee in hand, smug smile ready. Until he saw my office. Empty. Desk clean. Nameplate gone. No laptop. No chair. Just a single envelope on the floor by the door. Gavin stopped cold. His smile faded. And he read the label, to CEO and board. Immediate. Then, behind him, the company attorney sprinted around the corner like someone chasing a fire. His face was pale. His voice barely came out. "Tell me you didn't publish it." Gavin swallowed. What did he publish? The attorney looked past him, straight at my father, who had just stepped out of the elevator. And that's when my father saw it too, the courier receipt taped to his office door. Delivery confirmation. Timestamped. Board and legal. Already sent. Already read. My father's expression fell apart. And the hallway went quiet like a funeral. Because in that moment, he finally realized something: suspending me didn't punish me. It freed me. By the time my father reached his office, the board meeting was already being rescheduled. Emergency session. No agenda. Just one line in the calendar invite: engineering documentation review. That alone told me everything. I didn't go back upstairs. I sat in my car across the street, engine off, phone in my hand, watching executives arrive early for once. The CFO showed up first, jaw tight, phone glued to his ear. Then HR. Then the company lawyer again, still pale, carrying a binder so thick it looked like a lawsuit in paper form. Gavin arrived last. Late. As always. But this time, nobody smiled at him. Nobody nodded. Nobody made space. He stood near the elevator, scrolling through his phone, pretending calm. He wasn't calm. Because for the first time in his career, there was no one left between him and the consequences. Inside the conference room, my email was on the screen. Not summarized. Not softened. Displayed. Every chart. Every timestamp. Every, per my previous email. Every moment where I warned them. One board member finally spoke. "So, these timelines we approved?" The CFO cleared his throat. "Engineering never signed off on them." Another director leaned forward. "Then why were we told delivery was guaranteed?" Silence. Then Gavin laughed. A short, defensive laugh. Look, you all know how Ethan is. He's cautious. He always overestimates timelines. The lawyer didn't look at him. He looked at my father. Sir, your son's documentation shows repeated instances where these concerns were raised and ignored. My father rubbed his temples. He should have come to me. The lawyer clicked to the next slide. He did. Repeatedly. Email chains filled the screen. My name. My father's replies. Short. Dismissive. Make it work. Support leadership. Don't overcomplicate this. The board didn't look angry yet. They looked embarrassed. That's worse. Then the attorney pulled out the last document. And that's when the room changed. This, he said carefully, is the part we need to discuss immediately. He projected a client email. Sent that morning. Subject line, concern regarding delivery promises. The client had received 2 different timelines. One from Gavin. One from me. And now they were asking which one was real. Because their legal team was already involved. The CFO swore under his breath. One board member stood up. You told us this was locked, she said to Gavin. Gavin's voice cracked slightly. It is locked. Engineering just needs to push harder. The attorney closed the binder. No. Engineering needs 4 more months. Or we're exposed to breach of contract. Every head turned toward my father. The room waited. For once, nobody cared who was his favorite son. They cared who just cost them millions. Meanwhile, my phone lit up. Texts. Calls. Voicemails stacking like a countdown. From HR. From the board secretary. From my father. I didn't answer. Because for 6 years, I answered everything. Now? They could sit with it. At 11:47 a.m., my lawyer called. They're panicking, he said calmly. Which means they want leverage. Let them sweat, I said. He chuckled. They're discussing suspending Gavin. That almost made me laugh. Almost. Temporary, he added. They're framing it as a misunderstanding. Of course they were. They always frame things that way. My father had spent decades insulating Gavin from consequence. This time, the insulation failed. At noon, I got the call I expected. My father. I answered. Ethan, he said quietly, no authority left in his voice. We need to talk. We already did, I said. No, he replied. This time, I need you. There it was. Not sorry. Not I was wrong. Just need. You sent that email knowing what it would do, he said. I sent it knowing what would happen if I didn't, I replied. A pause. The board wants you back, he said. At least temporarily. As a consultant. I'm not cleaning up Gavin's mess. They're willing to offer compensation, he pushed. I don't want money, I said. I wanted respect. You suspended me instead. His voice cracked. You embarrassed us. I leaned back in my seat. You protected Gavin. I protected the company. Now everyone sees the difference. Silence. Then, softer, I didn't think you'd go this far. I didn't think you'd make me choose, I said. An hour later, the news spread through the building. Gavin's access badge was disabled. Not fired. But sidelined. The official phrase was, temporary leave pending internal review. Unofficially? The board had finally realized something terrifying. They didn't know how the company actually worked. Because the person who did, wasn't there anymore. By 3 p.m., my resignation was accepted. My severance triggered automatically. Stock options vested. HR sent paperwork like they were afraid I'd disappear. I signed everything calmly. And then I sent one final email. To my team. Not dramatic. Not bitter. Just honest. Thank you for trusting me. Protect your boundaries. Don't let anyone promise what you're expected to deliver. You deserve leadership that listens. Replies poured in. Gratitude. Shock. Support. And something else. Relief. Because they'd been carrying Gavin's promises on their backs too. That night, my father called again. I didn't answer. But I listened to the voicemail. I should have listened to you, he said. I should have protected you the way I protected him. Too late doesn't undo damage. It just names it. And the next morning? The industry news broke, Caldwell Systems delays flagship launch amid internal review. The stock dipped. Clients started asking questions. And suddenly, the son who undermined authority looked a lot like the only one telling the truth. By Monday morning, Gavin went on the offensive. He didn't call me. He didn't text. He didn't apologize. He posted. A LinkedIn post, carefully worded, polished, dripping with corporate victimhood. Disappointed by internal sabotage and lack of alignment during a critical growth phase. Leadership requires trust, and unfortunately, not everyone understands that. No names. But everyone knew. Former colleagues started tagging me in private messages. Is this about you? Did you really try to tank the launch? What the hell is he talking about? I stared at the post, calm in a way that scared even me. Because I knew something Gavin didn't. And I'd been sitting on it for 6 years. Back when Gavin first became head of client relations, he asked me for a favor. Just one. He needed access to a sandbox environment so he could better understand the product, for a pitch. I warned him. That environment wasn't stable. Not client-ready. Not even close. He promised he'd only use screenshots. He lied. What he actually did was demo it live, to a major enterprise client. And when it crashed? He blamed engineering. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what he did next. He quietly authorized a manual workaround that bypassed our safety checks. A workaround I explicitly told him violated compliance standards. I documented it. Dated it. Saved it. Because something in my gut told me one day, I'd need proof. That day had arrived. I called my lawyer. He's escalating publicly, I said. So I think we're done being polite. There was a pause. Do you want to respond, he asked, or end this? End it. Then send me everything. I forwarded the folder I'd never deleted. Gavin_workaround_final.zip emails. Slack logs. Approval chains. Risk assessments he ignored. My warnings, clearly stated, clearly timestamped. My lawyer went quiet. Then he said something that made me close my eyes. If this goes public, he's not just embarrassed. He's unemployable. At 10:42 a.m., the board called an emergency vote. Not to reinstate me. Not to discipline Gavin. To assess liability exposure. Because the workaround Gavin approved? It potentially violated federal regulations. The kind with fines. The kind with audits. The kind where names go on records. My father called me immediately. Did you know about this? He asked, his voice barely holding together. I warned him about it, I said. Multiple times. You never told me. I pulled up an old email. Forwarded it. Subject line, urgent, compliance risk, do not proceed. Sent 3 years ago. He didn't reply. By noon, Gavin's LinkedIn post was gone. By 1 p.m., his access to internal systems was completely revoked. Not paused. Revoked. At 2:15, the compliance officer requested interviews. At 3:30, outside counsel was retained. And at 4:05 p.m., my father showed up at my house. Unannounced. He looked small. Not angry. Not powerful. Just tired. I didn't know, he said again, like repetition could change reality. You didn't want to know, I replied. He sat down heavily. Everything I built, he whispered. I trusted him with everything. You trusted him because it was easier than trusting me, I said quietly. That one landed. He nodded. Slow. Painfully. That evening, Gavin finally called me. No confidence. No arrogance. Just panic. You sent them everything, didn't you? He asked. Yes. You ruined me, he hissed. I laughed. A real laugh. No, I said. I stopped protecting you. Silence. Then his voice broke. You always hated me. I hated watching you hurt people and never face consequences, I replied. There's a difference. The next morning, the company released a statement. Carefully worded. But unmistakable. Following an internal review, we have parted ways with Gavin Caldwell, effective immediately. No praise. No gratitude. No soft landing. Just, gone. And then came the final call. From the board chair. We owe you an apology, she said. You were right. About everything. I know. We'd like to offer you a position, I cut her off. I'm not coming back. A pause. Why? Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't fighting to be seen. I don't need to win here, I said. I already did. That night, I slept like someone who finally put down a weight they didn't realize they were carrying. My father texted me once. I failed you. I don't expect forgiveness. But I'm proud of you. I didn't reply. Not yet. Some truths need time to settle. The investigation didn't take long. Truth never does when it's been documented properly. Within 2 weeks, compliance finished their review. Within 3, the regulators were notified. And by week 4, Gavin's name was officially attached to a formal compliance breach. Not a rumor. Not office gossip. A record. The kind that follows you. Gavin tried damage control. He hired a crisis PR firm. Updated his LinkedIn headline. Changed his profile photo. Former executive strategic advisor, growth specialist. But no one was calling. Because recruiters talk. And compliance flags don't disappear. One firm pulled an offer mid-process. Another stopped responding after the background check. A third told him, politely, that they were moving in a different direction. Different direction meaning, away from him. Then the lawsuits started. Not from us. From clients. The same ones he'd overpromised to. The same ones he'd smiled at while selling fantasies. The company settled quietly. 7 figures. My father signed off on every check. He didn't speak to me for months after that. Not because he was angry. But because he finally understood. He had chosen comfort over truth. Blood over competence. Silence over accountability. And it cost him everything he cared about. One afternoon, 6 months later, he asked to meet. Neutral ground. A cafe halfway between our lives. He looked older. Not weaker, just stripped of illusion. I should have listened to you, he said, staring into his coffee. I made excuses because it was easier than admitting I was wrong. I didn't argue. I didn't console him. I just let the silence do the work. I lost a son, he continued. And nearly lost the company trying to protect the other. I finally spoke. You didn't lose me, I said. You just stopped earning access. That one hurt. I could tell. Gavin moved out of state. Last I heard, he was consulting. Which usually means no one trusts you with authority anymore. Natalie, always Natalie, posted vague quotes about betrayal and family loyalty. No one engaged. People stop listening when patterns become obvious. As for me, I took the offer I'd already accepted. New company. No family ties. No favoritism. Just results. Within a year, I was promoted. Within 2, I was leading a team bigger than the one I'd built before. And the difference? No one questioned my competence. No one asked me to apologize for telling the truth. One night, James, the guy who took over my old department, called me. Just wanted you to know, he said, we fixed everything you warned them about. The team's solid now. I smiled. Not because I missed it. But because I didn't have to carry it anymore. Here's the thing people don't like to admit, sometimes walking away isn't revenge. It's self-respect. Sometimes the most powerful move is letting people experience the consequences you protected them from for years. And sometimes, the empty desk isn't a loss. It's freedom.